Welcome tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sabrina Adler, and I am the new principal at Ralston this year. And I'm excited to share the team and a number of things about Ralston tonight and answer some questions at the end. A little bit about me. I was a principal for the last 4 years in the Redwood City School District at Kennedy Middle School. Prior to that, I was an assistant principal at the other middle school in Redwood City. I taught in Cupertino. I have a single subject math credential and a multiple subject credential. So I mostly taught math, and I actually built a leadership program, but I did teach the other subjects briefly. And then I actually started my career in public accounting. I worked for one of the big four, KPMG, and realized that 18 hours a day, 7 days a week in a windowless conference room was not really my thing. And that I loved coaching middle school soccer at the time and was working with middle schoolers in other capacities and fell in love with middle school. And that's what I've been my whole career when I switched over in education. I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Jorgensen, one of my assistant principals, to introduce herself.
Hello, welcome. My name is Kelly Jorgensen. I'm one of the assistant principals at Ralston. This is my first year at Ralston as assistant principal. Looking forward to meeting you guys next year and your incoming sixth graders. A little bit about me. I am a science teacher. I taught science for over 20 years, single subject in science. Also have a multiple subject as well. So I've taught a little bit of everything, but science was my true background. Looking forward again to meeting you guys next year. And we have a lot to present to you tonight. So I will turn it over to Patrick, our other assistant principal.
Hi, I'm Patrick Wilson. Also my first year here at Ralston. I taught up in Burlingame for about 10 years. I taught history and English. So between the three of us, we've got the core subjects covered: math, science, history, English. Feel really blessed to be on an awesome team here, and really looking forward to meeting your students that we'll be having next year.
All right, Ms. Rocha.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Rocha. I'm one of the counselors at Ralston. This is my third year at Ralston, so next year will be year 4. And I have, like many of my colleagues here, have found just my passion in middle school. It's a quirky, wild age, but I love the kids just for that. And it's a huge transitional time. So counseling tends to be a huge focus of this transition to middle school. And I'm just excited to help a new set of sixth graders join us, and we look forward to supporting them as they come along to our campus.
Hi everyone, I'm Tiffany Sam, also another one of the counselors here. This is also my first year at Ralston. I am just starting my career. I graduated in May of 2021. And so I am just really excited to be at a middle school. I feel really grateful to be at Ralston in particular and with this wonderful team. And I'm excited to welcome all the new sixth graders next year as well. The beauty of graduating during a pandemic was that I was a student just along with these other students who got shut down and had to go to distance learning too. So I can relate with them on a lot of levels about what that transition was like. And I'm looking forward to seeing them all in person next year.
You can see the common theme here, except for Lauren. We are a new team here, but we are really having a good time, working hard, and have been positively impacting Ralston this year in a challenging year with COVID and all sorts of surprises. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to start the presentation. And again, we will answer questions at the end. Hopefully we'll hit most of them along the way. And again, we'll post these slides and the video online so you can review them again later. The goal for tonight is to talk a little bit about the Bell schedule and what classes look like. Talk about the academic and social emotional support, i.e. the role of the counselors and other staff. School support, spirit and engagement, clubs and groups. Sports is always a popular one. A little bit about some upcoming dates, and then we'll put our contact information up and take any questions. Here is our current Bell schedule. As you'll see, quite colorful. We have 7 periods that are offered at Ralston, and students have 6 classes per day. You'll notice in purple that that 7th period rotates and it replaces a class throughout the week. This is probably very similar to what the schedule will look like next year. There may be some tweaks. We actually just had to tweak it just this week. We started a little bit of a new schedule. Some of you know, some of you may not know that coming to the state of California in August is universal breakfast, and lunch has been free this year for everyone, and that'll continue. So Ralston is one of the 2 pilot schools this year for universal breakfast. We just started our pilot this week on Monday, and the kids are enjoying a longer snack time and food from a lunch master. So we built in a little bit longer snack time on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and we're trying that out. So we may tweak this a little bit. We're working with staff just starting on that process for next year, because we need some data and information from how the pilot goes, because we will be doing breakfast again in August. So this is our chance to figure it out and what's working, what's not, and what we need to do to our schedule to make it work better. So this will be pretty similar, hopefully, but just wanted to give you a taste of that. As far as classes, all students have 7 classes. Again, they only have 6 per day, but they do have 7th. In 6th grade, they have the equivalent of language arts, basically, but it's called literature and then composition. So one of the classes focuses on the reading part of language arts, one focuses on the writing. We feel that that's important as students transition to middle school. And it is a course, so it is the same teacher that will have those students for both subjects. So same group of kids twice. So for example, it could be 1st and 2nd period, could be 5th and 6th period, could be 5th and 7th period. So it depends on the core and the teacher. Then they have social studies, math. They're either going to take the 6th grade Common Core math class, which is what the majority of our students take, or the accelerated version, so the 6 AS. They have science, PE, and then in 6th grade, they get an elective, which is either music, wheel, or an academic support class. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those are in a couple of minutes. In 7th and 8th grade, students actually only have 1 period of language arts, and then they get 2 periods of electives. So some of our electives are year-long, some of them are semesters. So depending on what they choose, they could have 2 full-year electives, they could have 4 semester electives fit into 2 periods, or they could have a combo of a year-long and 2 semester electives. This year, you'll see on the right is our little wheel chart. You can take a look at that as I'm talking, but music is one of the options for 6th graders. In the past, it's actually only been music in terms of band and orchestra for students that took music in elementary school or have some experience playing music. But we are very excited to offer beginning band and beginning orchestra next year. So no experience needed, and students can choose to learn how to play an instrument. So that should be a really exciting experience, brand new at Ralston as we're building that up. Choir was an option in the past and will continue to be an option going forward. Another option is to take the wheel, and in the wheel, the students get to experience 4 of our elective courses at a mini version of it. So for a quarter, the offerings, as mentioned here in the slides, vary year to year. These happen to be the ones that were offered this year. We expect that a lot of them will be the same, but there might be some different ones as well. We also don't know how many students will be signing up for beginning band and beginning orchestra, so that will affect our wheel program. So we will get that information from you in a few weeks, and that'll help us to figure out what exactly we're offering and set the rest of our master's schedule. We also have some academic support classes. So study skills is a class for our gen ed students, and they learn about how to organize themselves, work on executive functioning skills, and then there's time to get help on homework and projects and classwork that they need help with. The equivalent of that for our students in special education, or RSP, is directed studies. That is through the case manager. So one of our teachers that is our case manager teaches that study skills equivalent. And then we also have a math support class for students who are struggling with math and really trying to master the basics. Some of you are probably wanting to know a little bit more about math and our math pathways. So our incoming students who are in district should have taken the Inspect in January. And then recently, we're taking MARS tests. Those are performance tests, much like the SBAC, where they have to show their work and explain their thinking. And then the SBAC will be coming up in May, our state testing. So we look at all of those things to determine whether the students are going into the 6cc class or the 6am class. And you can kind of see the traditional pathways there in the maroonish color, but then there are a variety of different ways you can get to different places via the dotted line. So that's something we've been trying to be a little bit more transparent about at Ralston this year, and how that works and placement, and more information will be coming up in April for our families, and I can send out that information as well to all incoming families to join for that principal's coffee that morning. And we always record it as well. For our incoming 6th graders, they will find out their placement when they get their schedule in August. So we will work during the summer, because a lot of times we don't have those SBAC scores until late in June, and we'll need to do some work over the summer. We do not accept outside coursework. So I know people have said, well, I'm an RSM and I do algebra and I do geometry, or I'm going to take a class at the community college. They're really not equivalent to the classes that we are offering, and we do not accept credit for that. So 6th graders generally are placed in that CC or the AS for 6th grade. Obviously, there's sometimes really special cases, but for the most part, that is where the students tend to belong. I included the link to my principal's coffee that I did earlier this year that talks all about placement at Ralston and proper placement and pathways. So you're welcome to check that out when we post these slides. All right, take it away, Kelly.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our physical education courses that we have at Ralston. All 6th and 7th and 8th grade have PE. Our units are 4 to 6 weeks. Outdoors, we utilize the gym and our MUR, which is our multiple use room. Students dress out in uniforms. So when they do have PE, there's an expectation to dress out for that. We have locker rooms for girls, for boys, and we also have a locker room for non-binary students as well. Teachers will check in with each student at the beginning of the year to find out their particular changing location preference. And I can't see that bottom part of that slide, sorry. My apologies. Yeah, I can't see the bottom. And then you're going to look to order some uniforms for later on this year. You'll receive that information to order uniforms. All right, our electives program, something that we're really proud of is our electives program at Ralston. These are some of the 7th and 8th grade electives, and we're showing you this so that you have a preview of what your students can choose as they move into 7th and 8th grade. And like what we said before, our wheel classes are sort of like a snapshot of what they could possibly choose for 7th and 8th grade for their electives. So we have all different sorts of things. We have animation, art, band, ceramics, choir, coding and story tech, the culinary arts, directed studies and study skills, drama, French, fun with physics, math support orchestra, PBL, otherwise known as project-based learning, the psychology of happiness, Read 180, robotics, Spanish 1A and B, strategy class, a STEM exploration class, student government, and yearbook. So we have a little bit of everything there. Something should interest your students as they transfer into 7th and 8th grade. Academic and social emotional supports. So we at Ralston have 3 full-time counselors. The counselors and the admin loop with each class. The counselors and the administrators also collaborate daily to resolve student needs and situations. We are constantly meeting regarding our students. The counseling department also sends out a monthly counseling newsletter that gives all sorts of pertinent information for not just Ralston students, but just middle school in general. Our program that we're using right now for our social emotional learning is Character Strong. It could be run by either the counselors or by the classroom teachers. And we have student support and advisement as well with academics and also with social emotional learning.
Tiffany and Lauren, I'm going to let you jump in and talk a little bit about your program and things that you think families need to know.
Yeah, so I want to address what counseling looks like in middle school in general, because it looks so different between elementary and high school. And Ms. Rocha and I were actually talking about it this morning of like what draws us to middle school counseling in particular. And it's the fact that so much falls under our umbrella. We support students with academic needs. So whether that's organization, which is huge when they transition to 6th grade and have all these different classes and have to have all these papers and lose things and try to find a place and all these different due dates to keep track of. And so that's a huge part of the job. But also there's the transition of what is social, like what does my social life look like? There are a lot of pressures that come around at this age, and so we're supporting our students through a myriad of things that come up, just developmentally speaking. And so that's what really draws us to counseling at the middle school level in particular. So if you want to move to the next slide, we can talk about how we support our students even more.
Yeah, so a big part of what we do is offering some groups and some maybe more specialized supports where we see the needs of our students to be fit. So this has looked different over the years. This year we have specifically provided these 3 kind of buckets of groups, one of those being a general coping skills group. So we provided 2 different groups during our fall semester of about 8 students per group. And really for all of our groups, we're usually partnering with other school psychologists, our mental health therapists, or other community partners as needed if there's a specialized need that we see our students are kind of having some challenges with. So the coping skills group was really broad, addressing students who might be experiencing stress or different challenges and how to cope with that. We also have offered a grief group over the past 2 years for students who have lost somebody in their life. This year, we are focused on students who have lost a parent, but in the past, we've also offered the group for somebody who's lost a family member, a sibling, or something similar. And we are also doing an open emotional processing group right now. We are kind of labeling this as like a lunch bunch where students can talk and just kind of bring up any emotions or feelings or challenges that they're going through. We have this group 2 days a week during lunch for about 10 students per group. And we allow this time for the students to maybe meet other kids who have similar challenges to them and to be in a space with an adult and counselor where they feel safe to maybe bring up what's going on. So really our counseling groups are very kind of needs-based. We do a lot of different surveys and gather data in different ways of what our students are struggling with. And I could imagine that many families are keen to the idea of students struggling in different ways with the transition back to school, mental health, engaging with their peers. And so we've really tried to adapt the counseling needs to suit what our students need as they come back after a disruptive 2 years. So as we continue to next year, we'll kind of look at what our 6th graders and 7th and 8th graders need and adapt from there. But we're always open to suggestions and ideas of what students might need.
All right. So in terms of school spirit and engagement, this year we've really come to this idea of we have to be very, very intentional about this. Coming back from distance learning, we need to really rebuild school culture, school spirit. And so you're going to see a lot of different examples of this. You see some pictures here, a lot of our spirit days, some fun. Some of our sports teams have actually won the championships this year. We've had some carnivals. There was actually a flash mob that the PE department organized where all the students did Thriller on the lunch yard before Halloween. It was a lot of fun. Here's some kind of a long list here of just some different examples, and you'll all be invited to our welcome back barbecue just before the start of next school year. There's also a web orientation that's more for the students. So the welcome back barbecue is students and families. The web orientation is more for, we have our 7th and 8th grade web leaders who will be showing the 6th graders around the campus, around school, kind of showing them the ropes, giving them a tour of the campus so they have an idea of where their classes are before that first day of school starts, and so that they can develop connections with each other coming from all the different schools that they're coming from, and as well as meeting some of the older students, the web leaders here. We also have a 6th grade carnival. We had this one towards the beginning of this year. Throughout the year, we have music showcases and concerts. We're going to be having one on Friday where Mr. Thielen really and his bands get to showcase some of the things they've been working on. And it's just really great. It's a good time for students to be able to take a break from their classes and see their peers performing. We also have web and student government events, Spirit Days as usual. This year we haven't had to do haven't been able to do dances because of COVID, but we anticipate next year we'll be able to do that. We also have Student of the Month celebrations. We have a monthly birthday celebration where everyone who had their birthday that month gets a cupcake or an alternative treat. And they also get a card for their birthday. Each of the admins sign each card. It's a lot of cards, but we really enjoy doing our little stack to start the week. We also have after school sports, a variety of options there, and then a variety of clubs and groups, which I'll go over in a little bit. Speaking of our clubs and groups here, you can see a wide variety of different clubs here, and I anticipate next year that we'll have even more, because just being able to have a little more freedom at lunch with loosening of some of our restrictions from this year. We're super proud to be able to announce that we have our first ever Black Student Union, which is student run, student led, and student created. We also have homework club before and after school several times per week. There's lunchtime intramurals for students who are interested in sports and want to play with their friends, but maybe don't have time for the after school sports or just want something fun to do at lunch. We also have our Makerspace Club, Math Olympiads, we have robotics clubs, we have Saga. And as Ms. Rocha mentioned earlier, the SEL groups meet during lunch once a week. And then we also have right now going on, they're practicing for their school musical, The Lion King. Another popular one is the Upstanders Club. And then finally, there are some student-led web clubs during lunch, which could include a variety of different topics, but this year they're focusing on these 5. And I think it's a there's a little bit of something for everyone between art, dodgeball, reading, soccer, and trivia. For after school sports, we do participate in the Art Davidson Sports League. We compete against San Mateo, Foster City, Half Moon Bay, San Carlos, Ravenswood, Palo Alto, and the other K-8 BRSSD schools. In fall, we have girls volleyball and cross country, winter's basketball. Spring brings tennis and track and field. I believe it also brings boys volleyball. And we're really proud to say that a lot of our teams won championships this year. It was great to see, especially the 6th graders coming together and forming these bonds on their team with students maybe that they never knew before. This is really great to see.
All right, so what's next? And you don't have to copy down all these dates and take a picture of them. I promise you will get these in your letter. So you'll have these in front of you. So as I understand, the district will be sending out the letters welcoming you to Ralston. If you get in, I will be writing that letter that you'll also get with the district's letter. That'll have a welcome letter with some of our upcoming dates. I don't want to be the complete bearer of bad news, but I do try to be transparent and honest that last year Ralston had a wait list, and I understand most likely it's going to have a wait list again. So not everyone is necessarily going to get into Ralston. I know what I've heard from talking to folks in the community is that this is the default school, but only if there's enough space for everyone. So those that applied from BRSSD schools in the first round should be fine. And then those that are not currently in BRSSD schools, it'll depend on space. We're hoping that everyone who wants to get in will get in, but it does sound like there will be a wait list because we do only have so many classrooms, so many teachers, etc. So expect that letter when we get back from break the week of the 4th of these dates and maybe some other things as well. We are excited to get going on building our master schedule, which means we need to let students start selecting their elective. So for 6th graders, in the acceptance letter, there will be a link and it will take you to the course catalog, so you get to learn about what's offered, and a selection form that needs to be completed by Sunday, April 17th. There's plenty of time for that. And then for most of our BRSSD feeder schools, we are going to be visiting after break. We're really excited. So at least one admin and counselor will be visiting. We've been setting those up, and we're going to go out and let the 5th graders ask questions. We'll give a similar presentation to students, and then throw out some swag and get them very excited about coming to middle school. We're still working with Nesbitt and Sandpiper, since not all of those students feed, about the best way to do that. We might come out at a lunchtime during that time, but for the others, we have already locked in dates and times to come visit after break. On Wednesday, May 4th, we're going to be offering our 6th grade panel. We'll do it via Zoom to make it more convenient to everyone. This will be a chance to get to meet some of our current 6th graders and learn about their experiences at Ralston. Might be a little different than next year, given that we've just come back, but you'll learn a little bit more about classes, what it's like to be on campus, things like that. So that'll be a great perspective. Then I want to throw out some August dates, as I know people are already planning for trips and coming back. So wanted you to have these dates. Our 6th grade web orientation is going to be on the 11th. It's going to be from 8:30 to 12:30. So on that day, students will come, they will find out their web group, meet their web leaders, and they will get to do some fun activities, icebreakers. We try to mix up the kids from different schools in those groups so they get to meet some new people, but I'm sure they'll see some folks they know as well. We will tour the campus, do some more fun activities, and then we will feed them with pizza before they leave. So that is a fun morning. And we will also make sure that they get their schedule on that morning. So that is their chance to look at their schedule, walk through their schedule, etc. Some of you may have already been planning to be out of town. So if you can't make it, you can't make it, but hopefully most will be able to come that day. And if not, we will make sure you can get your schedule on another day. We think it's great for all of the families to meet each other and the kids to start meeting each other. So right before school the next week, that Monday night, we will have our 6th grade barbecue. So hopefully you like hot dogs and veggie dogs and chips. We will do that from 5 to 7. You'll get to meet all of us in person, and we'll get ready for starting school that week. We found it was exciting this year to do this for 7th and 8th grade families as well. So we're going to do that again this year to build community. And then look at that, Wednesday, August 17th, first day of school. So we don't know exactly what the start time will be. It'll be dependent on what we select with the bell schedule, but sometime probably around 8:20-ish, depending on what we're doing with breakfast and things like that. For those that are coming from a private school or a charter out of district that end up coming to Ralston, I know we talked about math placement and things like that. Once we have the list of everybody coming, we will reach out to you to schedule time for placement tests and other things that maybe haven't happened because you're not currently in district. All right, so again, excited at this web orientation. There's a little bit more info. Again, it's a chance to help our students transition, and it's actually not just this one orientation guide. Our web program, which stands for Where Everybody Belongs, is going to be throughout the whole year. So students will see their web leaders each month. We'll have some fun activities, build community. And again, because we mix up the groups, they'll be making some new friends that aren't necessarily the ones that they hang out with all the time. But we're all out there together on the yard doing fun activities and connecting. Here is our contact information. You can also find it on the website. And again, we'll post these slides. And then we are going to start answering questions from the chat. Hopefully we've answered a lot of them along the way, but we will take a look at those right now and then allow others to answer questions and ask questions. All right, so first question, what time is universal breakfast offered? Great question. Again, this is a work in progress, but what we're doing right now is we are offering that during our snack time, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. On Wednesdays, it's a little tricky. We have to serve 2 meals in a shorter period of time. So today, the students, this was our first go around, got breakfast before school, and then lunch is served during the snack time. And the reason we went with the after the bell model for the most part, which is what the other schools will be doing, is it allows more students to access breakfast when it's after the bell and more equitable, and then less burden as we're trying to split staff to try and make that happen. All right, how much homework is expected each night? Our big focus is on language arts and math. So I would expect that students will be reading at least 30 minutes a night. They sometimes will have some writing to do or something else, or reading log to fill out with. And then math, probably somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes. And then what we say with the other subjects for the most part is that we mostly finish up projects or exams from class, but don't have a ton of homework in science and social studies, sometimes longer term projects, but we're going to focus on those pieces. Kelly, you want to answer the next couple questions?
Sure. So for PE, asking about changing into uniforms in the locker room. So it is a full change. So they are putting on shorts and a t-shirt for PE. And they do have their lockers with a lock, and that will all be taken care of by the PE department. They will assign them their lockers and give them their lock. So yes, on the 4 days that they do have PE, they will be changing fully, shorts, t-shirt. They do allow them to wear sweats if it's cold outside, you know, sweatshirts and things like that. So yes, that's a full change. Are there specific counselors for each grade? Yes, there are. We have one counselor for each grade, one for 6th, one for 7th, and one for 8th. How does a student access these particular groups? I'm going to assume that was the groups that Mr. Wilson was talking about. They are voluntary. So the groups that are run by the counselors, I'll actually let the counselors to talk about those specific groups. But the rest of the groups that are out there, the majority of them are all voluntary. So if your student is interested in joining the Saga group, they can. If they're interested in being a part of WEB during lunch, they can do that as well. So those are all voluntary. So counselors, would you like to take it away with your particular groups?
Sure. So there's kind of a combination. We have offered kind of open advertisement for students that want to join some of the groups. And then there have been some groups where we maybe reach out to specific students or families based on, for example, the grief group. We advertise that via our newsletter, and then students and families that specifically wanted to join came through that way. Some of our groups are maybe built off of students that kind of share with us that they're having some challenges via surveys or via check-ins with their counselor, and we might offer kind of an invite that way. So they're always voluntary, never mandated, and we always reach out to families to let them know that students want to participate and just confirm that they want their child to join the group.
All right, Mr. Wilson, you want to take a couple of the questions?
Absolutely. Let's see. Question, will there be a web orientation for new incoming 7th and 8th graders? Also, that's a great question. I think we can certainly invite your student to come, and if there's enough to create its own little group at that orientation, that's certainly fine. There's not going to be a separate web orientation because there just won't be enough students to serve in that population, but definitely we encourage your new incoming 7th and 8th grader to join us for that as well. Let's see. For instruments that are offered for 6th graders, we have to talk about beginning band and what that's going to look like, but a lot of the typical instruments that you'd expect in a band or orchestra, we have all kinds of brass, woodwind, percussion, strings. Yeah, pretty typical selections there. How do students create a club at Ralston? Simply, if they have a great, an idea for a club and they think they have enough people who might join, they can come to an administrator or a counselor or a teacher and pitch their idea. And as long as they have an advisor, an adult who's able to supervise, typically we give them the green light. And so if your student is interested in creating a club at Ralston, I encourage them to reach out to an adult here to see if we can get them an advisor to join them. Let's see. There's a few questions about coming into Ralston from schools within BRSSD. Sabrina, do you want to take those ones?
Yes. So we expect that those from the TK, K5s, so Cipriani, Central, Fox, Redwood Shores, are feeding in. What I understand is that for Nesbit and for Sandpiper, because they go up to 8th grade, families had to elect whether they were staying there or they were coming to Ralston. And then there was priority for families that go to Redwood Shores to be at Sandpiper out there. So we have our typical feeders, but then there were forms for those that are at the 2 K8s. So that is how that should work. Let's see, what else do we have here? There are some questions about buses. Yes, so we accommodate for the schedule. A lot of our Samtrans buses start arriving at 7:45 in the morning, and we actually start our homework club early, several mornings a week. And so there are multiple loads of buses that come in through Ralston. Same thing in the afternoon. We've got, for example, the 6th grade, 67, the 7th grade, 67, the 8th grade, 67. Then there's one for each of those for the 68 line. And then we have a couple of 60 buses as well. So the timing is accommodated for that. So that should not be a problem. And we work with Samtrans closely. They were actually out this week checking out our buses and how full they were, counting numbers. And we give them our bell schedule and let them know kind of where we need timing wise the buses to come. If, for example, you are not accepted to Ralston, that means there will be a place at the K8, so that would be Sandpiper or Nesbit. They're also, when we get back from the summer, sometimes people move, things like that, so we will be adding students as we can as well. So again, the kids that there wasn't space this year went out to Sandpiper or Nesbit. Those are also great schools. They're just different structures because it's a K8 versus a middle school. I don't have the exact percentage. Again, most of the students were able to get into Ralston, but again, we don't have an infinite amount of space. So we have to base it based on our classrooms and our teaching staff and things like that. So there will be a wait list as well. As far as math placement testing, I know that's always a hot topic. I don't think they're sharing yet the results of the placement test for the elementary schools. I know especially for the Mars tasks, which they just took, it's called the MAC actually, which is a bunch of different performance tasks. The teachers are just going through training on how to score those. So there's a lot of work that actually is involved in being able to even just grade those and calibrate and then actually grading them. So there's still a whole process, even with my families at Ralston, because we do our internal placement and do some of the same things where they take the MAC and we're looking at some other scores. I told them MAC scores and some of the other scores probably won't even be available till the end of April, early May, just as we're getting up and running and figuring out how to do that. As far as after school sports.
I can take those questions, Sabrina, if you'd like me to.
Go for it.
All right, after school sports. So yeah, anyone can go out for after school sports. We do have tryouts and those dates will be announced to the students and they're also sent out within our newsletter as well. So any students, if they have prior experience or not, they're more than welcome to come and try out for the different sports teams. They have cut people before in the past, but I do know that if, the more coaches we get, the more teams we can actually hold. So I know that we've had different grades with an A team, a couple of B teams, possibly even a C team. It really just depends on the sport and the accessibility to like a gym, something like that. How often do they practice and compete? It really depends on the particular sport and also the availability of the coach, but I can tell you that typically there is 1 to 2 practices per week. And also there's usually 2 games per week as well. So if you have a heavy game week, there may be cut back in practice time. Our gym is used year round for everything. So our gym is packed all the time. So it really depends. And those practice times could range from 3:30 up until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So I can tell you that about after school sports. I saw something regarding lockers. So we do not have lockers for our students. We have our PE lockers that are available, but no, we do not have lockers for our students to change their books each period and things like that. But what we do offer is that we have a class set of books that stay in the classroom, and then the students will bring home a set of the actual textbooks to leave at home as well. So they don't have to technically carry those books back and forth to and from class or even home. So that's a really easy way to, kind of ease that weight in their backpacks. Our students are all given a one-to-one Chromebook that they're also carrying around. They do bring that every day, and they take it home at night as well. We are still working on our backpack weight and trying to get that down lower, but we've come a long way since the beginning of the school year when they first received their Chromebooks. So I can tell you that much regarding lockers.
All right, I'm seeing a couple of questions related. Just want to clarify. So Sandpiper and Nesbitt students, if you fill out the paperwork to come to Ralston in that first period where they were allowing that, you should be coming as well. So it's our feeders and Sandpiper and Nesbitt students who actually opted to come over. So we expect that anybody who opted in that first round should be coming to Ralston next year. So again, if you did the paperwork at Sandpiper and Nesbitt indicating you were leaving those schools, you should be coming over to Ralston, and I would expect you'll get that acceptance letter when they send them out in a little over a week. I saw a question about learning how to use lockers and locks. Your PE teachers will teach you how to use combo locks. That is something they will practice many times, so don't stress about that. Question, accelerated math at the other campuses. That's something that they are working on. It is correct that it's different at a traditional 6th or 8 middle school than a K-8 because there's just a lot more students at Ralston. So that means there's a lot more options. So I'll give you a statistic just for comparison purposes. This year at Ralston in 6th grade, we have around 400 students. And I believe at Nesbitt in 6th grade, they have around 37 6th graders. So you can see where there's a lot more flexibility in different levels of math, different kinds of electives, when you have more teaching staff and a bigger population of students. After math groups are determined, is there mobility between the groups during the year? If a teacher feels that a student is really misplaced and there is evidence for a move, that is something we've done in all grade levels this year. I'm not going to say that that's the norm, but counselors work closely with the teachers and admin. And we're in classrooms a lot as well, so we get to know students' abilities. So we will not pigeonhole somebody if that is not where they should be placed. So don't worry about that piece. Let's see what else. Bullying. So a couple of questions about bullying and consequences. I would say that in every middle school, even in elementary school, that bullying happens. It's part of this point in life where students are challenging things. They're going through puberty, they're learning their identity, they're pushing the boundaries. There's a lot going on. So we try to handle this appropriately to the situation. Not all situations are the same, but things that we might do, there could be detention, there could be campus beautification. If it was very extreme, it could be an in-house or an out-of-house suspension. We really do like to bring kids together when we can and it's appropriate, because if I talk to one student and then I talk to another student separately as I'm trying to resolve the conflict, that doesn't always work because they can convey whatever message they like because they weren't together in a room. We really do like them to try to talk it out, restore that relationship. And if nothing else, teach respect. I'm sure all the adults on this Zoom right now can say that they've probably worked with people that they don't necessarily like, but they have to respect and they have to work with them. So those are the skills we're trying to preach with our students. So a lot of different ways that we can handle that. We're looking at some further social emotional support next year, which plays into that piece as well. Some of our clubs are helping with messaging and education. So there'll be a lot of different things. And again, it really depends on the situation, but counselors and the admin partner on a lot of these because there's different components that feed into these. Question about IEP. So we haven't talked a lot about what special ed looks like at Ralston. It was discussed back in January when we did the whole middle school presentation, but we do have pull-out math for some of our students with IEP. We also have the same equivalent for the literature and composition piece as well. For the most part, you should be having a transition meeting with us this very week. We've been meeting with most of the elementary schools to do the one-on-one meetings with families for students and picking courses if your student has an IEP. If they're coming over in 7th and 8th grade, then we would also have a transition meeting. But right now, they are working on 6th grade acceptance. So I understand that the week of April 4th is just going to be 6th grade. I'll also tell you that we have a wait list already in 7th and 8th grade currently. So we're just going to be adding to that. I don't know that we're going to be adding a ton of students in those grade levels. They're already really big, and we don't want the school to be too big either. That doesn't help with relationships and getting the students the things that they need as well. Some students will opt to come to homework club to get some extra support for math. And then that support elective, again, is really for the students that are struggling with the basics of math and need to get those foundational skills to be more successful in the next level and in their current class. Okay. Are we expecting the acceptance letters by mail or email? That's a great question. I will have to get back to you on that answer because I am not working with the district. They are handling that. I was just told I need to get a welcome letter written by Friday, so it's going out with their letter. My guess is usually a lot of things go out by email because that's faster and quicker, but again, I will find that out and ask if the district can communicate that out to families.
I saw a question about parent volunteers that I can answer.
Excellent, thank you.
So it looks like somebody had a question. Do you need parent volunteers and what roles do they do? And we certainly love any parent help that we can get. This year we've had parents helping us with lunch, with snack distribution, with our crosswalk, and like kind of helping us in the morning monitor students getting to school and helping us make sure that students are on campus and safe, and just kind of walking around and helping us check on students. We certainly love any help. And we do have a wonderful PTA organization that is a good kind of outlet and I guess channel to get connected with Ralston and get connected with any of the things that we might need help with. And I know they have several different committees that help us with specific activities, events, and things to help our community out. So we love any parent help we can get.
I see a couple more math questions. So again, for incoming 6th graders for placement, they should have taken the inspect in January. They are just in the process of finishing up the MAC, the MARS tasks, which are the different performance tasks. And then they'll be taking the state test, the SBAC, in May. So we use all those pieces of data and we look at that in June. That's why we can't give out those placements now. We'll need to be working through the summer to look at what those scores look like compared to typically what we expect. So typically in the past, we've had about 90-ish students in the accelerated math for 6th grade. So again, roughly 375-ish to 400 coming in, about 90 are in that accelerated math. If there's more, we will place more in there. But right now, I think I've heard a little bit about some preliminary data that I asked about. I think my guess, which was about 3 sections of math for accelerated, which is what it's been in the past typically, is gonna probably be right on point again this year. So we will look at all that. Again, we have the data and we will make those decisions. And then again, if we see somebody is super misplaced, their teachers know, and then they'll start having a conversation with our counselors and with admin to help with that as well. couple questions about field trips. We would love to have field trips. It's been a tough year with COVID, so planning that with all the restrictions we had, and again, with almost 400 kids in a grade level, just wasn't really that feasible this year. It's something that we're looking at for next year, and we'll share that information with parents next year as we're starting to plan that and have ideas and can book things. Let's see. Sorry, we're just clearing questions as we go here.
I can answer the question regarding the students who have many hours of sports outside of school. So we do have independent study PE at our school. That is something that the student will be in charge of, as far as having some documentation signed by their coaches, entering an hours log to show that they are working outside of PE. With that being said, we can move them into independent study PE, which means that they can opt out of regular general PE, and they can have a period if they need to be picked up early for practice, or they can use that period at school to use as like a study hall as well. So that is something that we do offer.
And this is for students that are in a year-round, very competitive sport. So they're training every week, regardless of winter break, things like that. So typically it's gymnastics, dance, it could be competitive swim team. It's not, I'm on Belmont United and I practice and play a lot during the week, and maybe I'm also playing softball as well. It's not for that. We just don't have the room to house all these students in their off periods. Again, if you think that you might qualify, you'll reach out to us at the beginning of the year, and we will talk about that and talk about your specifics on an individual basis in August. So not a problem. Students can start new clubs. Again, Mr. Wilson mentioned we probably will have more clubs this year. We're really just getting back into the groove of things with COVID. If a student is interested in a club, they can come let admin or counselors know. We typically try to find someone who can sponsor that club. We have some seed money to help get those clubs started for projects, for materials, things like that. So any ideas, we can discuss them and see if other students are interested. If a student qualifies for independent PE, can they take a third elective? No, we're really tight on elective space. We only get so much teaching allocation from the district, and that's all tied to budget. As many of you know, that we are one of the lowest funded in the county. So we will get kids into their 2 electives in 7th and 8th grade, and then their music or their wheel or their academic support in 6th grade, but we can't accommodate a third elective at this time.
There is a great question in the chat. How does Ralston incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and strategies in a student's experience and staff professional development? This year, we've seen, obviously, over the past few years, we've seen a huge growth in the resources for this topic in education. And this year in particular, we're seeing more and more students voice these needs, and rightfully so. And so I was very proud, as I mentioned earlier, to see students coming to us to start our first Black Student Union. We also have SAGA, Sexuality and Gender Alliance. I would love to see an AAPI group on campus, and would love to work with students to get that started. I think it's very important to give students their voice in this realm, to make it student-led and student-created groups. And right now we're talking with some of those groups about how do we get education out to classes? How do we get visibility and voice spread throughout campus? These are great questions to ask, and there's things that we're discussing with our students and our staff as well.
Finally, looks like last question, we've got some of our 5th graders that'll be at Outdoor Ed the night of our panel in May. We had to just pick a date that worked with the calendar and everything going on. So if you are away at Outdoor Ed, you do not need to listen. It's just another opportunity to learn about Ralston, but you'll get other opportunities throughout the summer to hear from us, from students, and then as we come back for web. So I wouldn't stress about that if you cannot make it. Oh, we got a bunch of new questions in the chat, so I'll keep going. Do we have outdoor ed in 6th grade? No. And unfortunately, some of our students didn't get to go to outdoor ed because of COVID, but unfortunately, there was only so much room in outdoor ed, and that had to be planned way in advance. And as we told you, the team is almost completely new, and that wasn't planned. For example, at my old school, they did end up going this year, but we had to get that figured out way in advance. So no, but we hope to have some field trips and exciting opportunities for our 6th graders to do that. If you are an incoming 6th grader who's already played an instrument, there's a question about auditioning. Yes, that is possible. So when you get your course information, so again, you'll get those links in the letter, there'll be some more information about which instruments you can choose. You'll actually list your first, second, and third choice. If you're choosing orchestra, or you're choosing band, we'll list what those options are. And then you'll have an opportunity to let us know if you already play an instrument and maybe those aren't appropriate classes, either the intermediate or the beginning. There will be an opportunity to audition, and we'll reach out about that once we know which students need what.
There's a question about any academic teams, Olympiad, debate, fees. We do have Math Olympiad this year. I would love to add more to that. Having experienced it at my previous school, I'd really love to add the National Spelling Bee here and National Geographic's Geography Bee. Those are also great, you know, academic sorts of competitions that we can bring to Ralston.
Regarding the electives, so with 6th graders, the incoming 6th grade class, they get a choice of taking beginning band, beginning orchestra, which would actually be the entire year. Those students who do not choose to do band or orchestra will be put into our 6th grade wheel. Our 6th grade wheel consists of 4 different classes that they will travel as a group from one class to another, to the 3rd, and then to the 4th, based on the quarter system that we have. So they will get 4 of those electives, and then from there, when they enter into 7th and 8th grade, they get to put some choices for their top electives. Yes, this will be recorded, and I believe it'll be on YouTube. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll send out the link. We'll also post it on our website.
And
Question.
Choir is for beginners, correct? So
we have different levels of choir.
Yeah.
So yep, beginning choir. If you haven't sung but you have a passion for singing, you can come and sing at Ralston. Again, for those who are new to the district, once we have all of our students who we know are coming from the district, we will reach out to the families that are not currently part of BRSSD to arrange time and processes for a math placement. So there'll be the math placement tests, and then since they may not have some of the equivalents as some of our BRSSD kids, like the inspect test, we'll look at some similar metrics from your private school, charter school, etc. We do offer guitar, but not in 6th grade. That's a 7th and 8th grade elective.
The question regarding time off, if a student needs to take time off for a longer period of time, you can get a hold of us in the office and we'd help you through that process individually.
All right, last question. Math placement test, is it in the spring or the summer? Again, if you're at a BRSSD school, you should have taken the inspect in January. The piece that is currently going on is the MAC, the Mars Performance Test, and then the SBAC in the spring, in about the first week or so of May, probably around then. And if you are new to the district, we will be reaching out to you to set up times to take those. So probably this spring or in June as we're getting ready. Again, we won't have everybody's scores till the summer, so we will be figuring out all those placements this summer. Is there a school start date yet? Yes, it's in the upcoming dates. As you saw, it's the 17th. So please look at those. And then again, they'll be in the letter as well. I think we made it through all the questions. So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we will post this on our website so that you can see the video, the slides, and there'll be more information coming out in the welcome letters very soon. So thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Ralston. As we always say, make it a great day to be a Ralston Ram. The kids love hearing me say that on the morning announcements. And we'll see many of you really soon. Take care and have a good night.